Hello, and welcome to DigiDate Episode 3, where we focus on the Another Story route of Mystic Messenger. I'm one of your hosts, Nellsie, and I am participating in villager trading once again.
And you are addicted to villager trading.
A little bit.
And I am not, because I am now addicted to making fucking pathways. Anyway, my name is Milo. I'm the other host on this podcast that is not about Animal Crossing, but also isn't it kind of...
It's not about Animal Crossing, but isn't everything about Animal Crossing when you think about it?
When you stare too long at it, yeah, I think everything is in some way or another about Animal Crossing.
I walk past some weeds and I'm like, wow, just like Animal Crossing.
Okay, we're never gonna fucking come off this.
We are never. But that brings us into a great segue, because as we were talking about this podcast as if we were getting into a long, involved conversation about Animal Crossing, you may have felt a sense of unease, as if we had come into your house and moved your furniture 2 inches to the left. Because you've gotten used to us and our anime boys. And now we're not talking about the anime boys, we're talking about the little animal boys that we've put together in our villages. And so that brings us to a new segment called This Is Not My Beautiful House. This is not my beautiful wife. And that's the Another Story route.
Correct. This is wrong, and they moved shit, and they didn't tell me first.
They didn't tell me before they moved shit, and now I'm bumping into everything as I walk around, and I go out, and that's not my beautiful car. Those are my beautiful blonde boys.
These are not my beautiful blonde boys. But so in Another Story, whenever me and Nellsie were like, we're gonna do another story, we're gonna hold hands in a circle, and we're gonna pay money to do another story. And whenever you start another story, the first thing you notice is that it does not take place like the usual time period that the game does, which is like a year and a half after Rika has died, quote, unquote.
Died, wink, wink.
Instead it's 6 months, and so everybody is fucking different. She just died in their minds, and it's wrong.
I have here in my notes, quote, in all caps, everyone is so weird, puts a general sense of unease in your brain. It also... You, as the MC, and we talked about this when we first played it, it does not feel like you are the same MC in a way.
No, absolutely not.
Because you're dumb as hell.
Yeah. This MC, like, in the usual MC, has a lot of options to be like, why am I doing this? I don't want to do this, etc., etc. This MC doesn't as much, and the options that she does have to sort of reject are so limited. It feels like this is a different person. Like, this is who the fuck is this? It's wrong. They moved my shit. How did they make the main character, who is like a blank slate, feel different?
I don't know. And it brings me to, so, to start with the basics of Another Story, I want to talk about what you have to do. We can get into the plot in a second. I do want to make specific note, because it's in my notes, that you get a real bargain for your buck. We paid about $12 for Another Story.
Yeah, I put in here too, I put in my notes, there's too much content. There's, like, too much.
We bought max speed because of this fucking game. It was too much content. Everybody talks so much.
And it's stupid. It's just dumb shit. And also, to redo a chat, it is like 15 hourglasses compared to 5. And you don't get hourglasses a crazy amount, but it made me, like, the 5 hourglasses felt like a dream in comparison. Oh my god, 15 hourglasses is too fucking much, and you're sitting through these chats that are typically at 3 o'clock in the... Cause in Another Story, the schedule is so fucking jam-packed at, like, 1 to 6 in the morning. And it drives me insane, because it's not just like you do a chat and it's 5 minutes. You do a chat and it's 20 minutes of you sitting there reading these fuckers talk about, like, politics and shit. I don't care. Go to bed.
I don't care about capitalist Juman Han. I don't care about capitalist Juman Han.
Yeah, and it's like... with characters like Jahi or something, they're pretty nice in small doses. When it's a long conversation, they run out of shit to talk about. So it's just like they're prolonging it with the most boring-ass conversations that I've ever had in Mystic Messenger.
It's so much. And it's like, thank you for filling this with content and making it seem like a totally new game because I spent $12. Can you maybe chill a little bit? Can you maybe pull it back a little bit on the 12-minute conversations? I remember I would time, like, the way I timed myself when playing Another Story is I wanted to access most of the chat. And so what I did is that I just knew hour to hour, there was basically a new chat every hour.
Yeah, you fucking could not look away from your phone for that long.
It's all too much.
Because I remember, so part of Another Story, I was not at home. I was, like, traveling on. And I remember distinctly that there was like this point where I'm in this hotel and I'm having to like fucking map out in the back of my eyelids, okay, if I'm going to sleep at 1 o'clock, I have to be up at 3. So that way if I'm up at 3, I can be up at 6. And if I'm up at 6, I have to be up at 8. Like, it's just so much.
It's so much. So that's...
Oh, sorry, but to end it, it's also not just chats. Every chat has a phone call app. Every chat.
Usually I like the phone calls. Couldn't deal with the phone calls this time. Too long.
I hated the phone calls.
They're too long.
Please stop calling me.
Stop talking to me.
It's just the chat, but again. It's just the chat, but again, and I don't want to hear it.
It's a chat, but again. And again. And again. And it's Jaehee singing about tacos to you.
I know, and I feel bad, because I'm a big Jaehee simp, but the goddamn lady, I'm sorry. I can't. You gotta let me sleep. It's like 2 p.m. conversation about Jaehee, and I'm like, I'm trying to do, like, work.
She's so cute, but please stop talking to me, ma'am. But... that brings us to the first route that we did, and we're gonna divulge from our usual...
Oh, no, we need to... we should get into the general plot of, like, what Another Story is, about how you are...
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So, onto the general plot of Another Story. Aside from the MC being sort of different, the situation that you're in is different as well. So, it's about 6 months after Rika's death, everybody's different, and what occurs is that you're, like, at a plaza... sort of thing. You're at like a shopping center or just around on like a crowded street, and you get a text message and it's like, hey, I'm a game developer. Would you like to test out my app?
Complete stranger. And the MC goes, sure, I would love to, like, test your app. And then he goes, okay, to test my app, you have to go to my remote location, and I have to send a car for you to come to my location. It's just...
And you go, uh-huh.
And he brings a car there, and they say, you can't see where you're going. Can you put on this blindfold? Joking. And MC goes, uh-huh. And she does it.
And you put on your blindfold and they take you to this big house in the mansions. And they put you in a fully furnished dollhouse of a room. Your princess playhouse of a room. And as you enter your princess playhouse of a room, you go in and you look around and you go, uh-huh. And then you meet my boy, well, I guess we're gonna call him Ray for this section.
Yeah.
You meet your boy Ray. He introduces himself as Ray. He's a Hot Topic white-haired anime boy in a big purple suit.
Yeah, and a princely suit.
In a nice princely suit. And he tells you about how he's developing this app, and it's a dating game about AI.
Yeah, very meta. Very meta for the game.
Very meta. And he introduces the AI to you, and he's like, you could develop a very close relationship with these AI, and you could really learn something about them and their past, and also that I hate them.
That I fucking despise them.
And you're like, hey, you created these AI, buddy, why do you hate them so much? And he's like, fuck off.
Please don't ask me that, I gotta go.
I have to leave. Do you want some candy, queen? You want some, you want something to eat, queen?
Yeah, and so you get in the app, and it's just the Rafa. It is just the Mystic Messenger app. And you're like, you get in there, and then everybody does the usual shit where it's like, who is this? Except you say, oh yeah, no, Rika sent me. Instead of before where it's like, I just found this app. No, you're like, oh no, you have to say the shit that Ray told you to send. You have to say like, oh, Rika sent me. Then they're all like, V immediately goes, okay.
Alright.
Everybody trusts this person.
We trust you, stranger.
We trust you now.
This, by the way, is also predicated by the fact that V is, we should mention that back when Another Story first came out, it was only the V route. And later on, Ray's route was added into the game. We did not play it this way.
I think about that a lot. I actually put that in my notes, and so I really wonder what it would have been like to just have V's route. Fucking hate V.
You cannot stand him. We held it back for you all during episodes 1 and 2 very badly, but we held it back for you all. But goddamn, we don't like him.
We don't like him, and it's gonna become a lot more abundantly clear when we get to his route, but just now, the reason why he's like, so go get him, with the fact that you said Rika sent is because he fucking knows that she's not dead. So he's like, oh, I have to save this person. That's where the Ray route kind of begins, is sort of with him. You're in Mintai, and you don't know that it's a cult, but we know, because you've obviously had to have played a little bit of Mystic Messenger to be able to get to this point. And it's sort of you having to live there and play the app. And do we sort of want to get into Seiren's now?
Yeah, so let's talk about Seiren. You may notice that we did our talks about the routes in order of what seemed to be the most plot relevant and important for their given, like, the deep story or the common story. We're not going to do that for this episode, and that's specifically because the order in which we played was that we specifically chose to go for Seiren before V.
Yeah, we didn't want to do the plot-heavy stuff first.
Yeah.
Which I kind of am, a part of me is glad that we did, another part of me isn't, because I really wonder what it would have been like to have to just play V's route first.
Yeah, I do very much wonder what it would be like just to, your only option is V. But,
God.
Let's talk about Seiren. So, on my notes, I have here a statement that says, we said we would not simp for this man. We refused to simp for this man. And then following that, we simped for this man.
We simped for him really hard.
So let's talk about Seiren, Ray, whichever, for a moment.
Yeah.
When you're first introduced to Ray, he is a very charming, princely type of guy. He's extremely creepy. Extremely creepy in terms of just how affectionate he is on the spot. He's attached to you by the hip.
Yes, literally. I put in here, I said, his simp Zona. Then I put in parentheses Ray.
Yeah. So Ray is he's super kind to you, he's super affectionate. There are lots of these moments where you'll be like, hey, are you doing alright today? And he'll go, no one's ever told me this before.
Every time. And it was funny. It was so funny playing it and me just going, damn it, he's saying this shit again.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning. No one's ever said to me.
You're breathing next to me? No one's ever done that before.
No one's ever breathed to me. This is crazy.
You're reading my messages? No one's ever done that before.
Just sad.
I've got love brain. Sad. I've got terminal love brain.
Terminal love brain. Yeah, and he's like making you breakfast and you flowers.
He's bringing you so many flowers because that's his thing, is flower language and flowers.
Mm-hmm. And it's this whole thing of like, he's trying to be very hospitable to you. And sort of be like, yeah, you need to go along with us and help us with my app. And the whole big thing in his route is that there's this moment where whenever you are in this cult, you have to drink this cult juice, which is the start of the cult juice.
That's the start of the cult juice. It's technically called the elixir, but it's also the cult juice.
It's the cult juice. And at the end of, like, whenever you start his route kind of a little bit in, Ray's like, okay, you have to join, to keep staying here, you have to be able to join our cult. You have to join our cult. And he's like trying to pitch it to you when you're in these gardens. And he's like, you were supposed to drink the cult juice, but I don't want you to get hurt, because apparently when you drink the cult juice, it fucks you up.
Fucks you up so bad. Fucked up an evil cult brain.
It physically hurts him. He talks a lot about how bad this cult juice fucks him up.
Mm-hmm. And so he's like, I don't really want you to drink the cult juice because I like you and I don't want you to get hurt. And so he goes, please keep it a secret that I did not make you drink the cult juice. And you go, okay.
Okay.
And so you don't drink the cult juice. And so that's the branch with Seiren generally, is that he's like, I'm not gonna give you the cult juice. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, and you're in that garden.
You're in the garden. He takes you to the garden, and you have a nice time with him. You go down there, and you give him wait, is this the point at which...
Yeah, you kiss him.
Okay, so this is a moment
you kiss him really early on in his route. Yeah, that's like day 5 you kiss him, is when this garden shit happens.
You kiss him extremely early on, and I remember that when it happened, we both messaged and we were like, okay, that was kind of cute.
It was really cute.
It was, because you kiss him and he runs away. He's like, I have terminal love brain. I have to go.
He does. It was cute. You're like surrounded by flowers. There's this cute CG where he's like, his eyes are like wide, and it's really adorable. And he runs away, and we're like, oh, okay. I'm kind of warming up to him.
Kind of warming up to this guy a little bit. And then Rika.
Yeah, I'm about to say, this is where Rika is like, you're being nice to Seiren. Stop it.
I guess technically she's the savior at this point, but you literally know she's Rika because she looks exactly the same. She's just wearing a mask, and also you've played the game before.
And also you played the game before, and the mask is so small.
You know it's her. Why would you pretend that you didn't? So, a lot of
this is that there's a different way of viewing it between what MC knows and what we know as people who have played this game enough to know that is fucking Rika. That's not...
That motherfucker is Rika.
But yeah, she's like, hey, what you did to him isn't good. You're manipulating him.
You're manipulating him with your feminine wiles.
You're being nice to him, and you're turning his brain into mush.
You're giving him terminal love brain. Do you think he could survive that? Have you seen the cousin disorder to that? Terminal cum brain. Have you seen Zen?
Do you want him to go down that road? He needs me. It's like, okay.
Alright.
And is this where the game pulls a horror card? No.
That's later.
He has the yeah, okay, go on.
So, then, things get a little bit complicated, because you see, now, Seiren is drinking a little bit more cult juice, Rei is drinking a little more cult juice, please edit that.
We're not gonna, let's just give up. I'm sort of realizing that we've said Seiren and Rei interchangeably at least 6 times.
Absolutely, okay. Well, Rei, wink wink, drinks a little more cult juice, which fucks him up immeasurably. And then he has sort of his switch. Which brings us to this note that I have that says, Seiren has multiple personalities, which some people interpret as DID, but it's sort of complicated, and if it is DID, we are not qualified to say whether or not it's a good interpretation, but probably not.
I don't think it's DID. I don't think so, because he talks about explicitly about like, oh, like this is just a thing that I did, like a coping mech.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it didn't seem like it was completely separate people. It just felt like he was just putting on an act.
Yeah.
Though he does have that break from reality. I don't know.
Yeah, it's complicated. I wanted to mention this specifically because I have seen people who interpret it as DID and they interpret Rei as an alter. But I think this is sort of a off interpretation, if only for the fact that at the end they're just the same dude.
Yeah.
He's like, you could call me Seiren or Rei, whatever it is you want. And it's like, alright, bud, you're Seiren.
He's sort of a combination of both, really, honestly, at the end.
Yeah. And
Less so the second one.
Yeah. And that brings us to, like, Seiren's Rei persona is very romantic and kind and dedicated to you. And regular Seiren is just an asshole.
A regular Seiren, I called him his asshole Zona, which is, he drinks a bunch of cult juice. Mm-hmm. So he decides that because, like, Rika is sort of saying, hey, you need to not be, she's gonna, like, destroy you, she's gonna use you, or whatever. Mm-hmm. He kind of goes into this fucking douchebag persona.
Yeah.
Who is just aggressive and rude.
Mm-hmm. People call this suit Seiren, which makes sense, because that's his defining character trait is he's wearing a suit.
He's wearing a suit, yeah. And it's a weird scene whenever he shows up. It's what I would like to call the weird horniness in the CGs.
The weird horniness of the CGs. I remember that we looked at the CGs occasionally before we had actually gotten to this point in the story, and we were like, that's gonna be a moment, and oh boy!
I was thinking it would be a bad ending. It is not.
It's not a bad ending. He bites you like a dog.
Yeah, he busts in. He bites you like a dog. He busts in. And then the first CG you see is him, like, putting his hand up on, like, beside your face. And then there's a CG where he's, like, pushed you onto the floor. And he's, like, over top of you, just, like, fucking goading you. And that's it!
That's it! And then he's like, don't eat! And then he walks away.
Yeah! God!
And it's like, alright. And I remember we messaged each other and we were like, oh, fuck this guy! I want Rei back!
I know! That was start of our simp, was that we immediately started simping for Rei. The second Rei was gone. We're like, where's Rei?
Where's Rei? He's trapped in the body of this dickhead.
Yeah, and this is where it takes a turn into the game is fucking with you.
The game is fucking with you so bad. I think you get a couple more chats with the RFA before you talk to them and you try to mention something about Seiren, and he cuts into the chat.
Yes, to tell you to knock it off.
To tell you to knock it off. This is so much. And that brings us to weird mindfuck things that the game will do. I have 3 specific examples.
Yes.
There's the chat you have where you try to talk to somebody about what's going on, and then Seiren cuts in to make fun of you and use his horrible cursed emojis.
Yeah. He has a new emoji for his Suit Seiren persona that are just bad.
Mm-hmm. There's the phone call you have where you start talking to Seven, and then it cuts off, and Seiren starts talking to you.
Yeah, that's also a V call. A V call also does that.
A V call also does that. And then thirdly, and most importantly, is a call where you think you are going to be having a conversation with somebody. You assume Seiren because it's an unknown number. This is an unknown caller ID that gets you.
Yes.
And then it's the cops?
Okay. Yes, I need to preface this. While this shit is going on, Seiren just walked in, right? And then he's been fucking with you this whole time. And this whole time, while this is happening, right before this happened, we had that call with V, where V is actively trying to get you out of there. And mid V trying to get you out, fucking Seiren cuts in. And Seiren now doesn't have a caller ID, really. He doesn't go by the Ray. He's a different phone number.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you kind of forget about the RFA shit. You completely forget about the whole thing with Seven, where Seven's being so Seven's, their parents, their dad, is looking for the brothers, and you forget that, Seven's being audited because he doesn't pay his fucking tax until you get this phone call from the fucking police!
From the cops, and they ask you if you know any suspicious characters, and you have to cover for Seven, and I thought this was gonna be Seiren fucking with us, and when I heard the static, I was like, okay, it's just Seiren fucking with us. And then it cuts to Seven going, hey, you didn't answer any of those questions, did you?
Yeah, you completely forget the RFA shit is happening, because there's so much stuff happening, and whenever the police call, and it's so weird too, because you gotta think about it in two layers. There's a layer of you have to protect Seven, and the other layer of you're stuck in this cult.
You're stuck in this cult.
And right now they're they're not feeding you anymore. And it's so wild, and you just fucking can't call for help.
And I want to establish how seriously the game takes its own meta in terms of the gameplay, where if you call Ray's number that he's called you from through the call history on the app, to try and get an outgoing call, it will go to message, and he will be playing a angry voicemail, making fun of you and bullying you. You have to go to contacts and pick Seiren specifically.
Yes, there's also this meta of, so at this point they're not feeding you. There's a lot of shit going on in this part of the route. Mm-hmm. There's also the whole thing of V is trying to get you out, but V won't tell anybody where you are, and you're being starved. But the whole starving thing is interesting because there's moments at the end of these long chats where it's just you, and you're just sort of talking about, you have messages, options you can choose. The options are I'm so hungry, can one of you help? Mm-hmm. And it's and you have to sit there and go, what the fuck do I want to do?
The fuck do I want to do? And you're in this weird headspace because they can see everything you're messaging to the RFA. It is an entirely different ballpark. And then we get into you being cut off entirely from the RFA.
Yes!
This game is a horror game?
This game is a fucking horror game. And it's funny, too, because we had talked about what if it gets, horror elements in it. And then it fucking did. It did. It really just did that to us.
It did that to us, and it did it incredibly well, which was disconcerting. So there was a point at which Seiren talks about how he was talking to Rika, and they mutually decided that you are no longer useful to them in terms of spying for the RFA. And so they cut you off completely from the RFA, and every time you access the app, the only people you can talk to is Rika and Seiren.
Yes, and they're the only two icons you see. The music is slowed.
The music is slow and distorted.
Yes.
There's static and glitching.
And the background in, the port where you choose the chats is different. It's, looks like you can almost see behind, the wire frame. Mm-hmm. It's so, fucked up and scary.
It's so fucked up and strange.
And I remember, because that's that point where you are used to the game. Mm-hmm. Getting to a point of where you open the app and the music is different. There's only two people you can talk to. Mm-hmm. And one of them is Rika, which you have, talked to a little bit, but not much.
You could only talk to them, and it's so fucked up and strange. And every conversation you have with Rika, by the way, is a conversation where she's like, I see what you're doing. You're manipulating the boy.
You're manipulating the boy with your kindness.
You're manipulating the boy with your feminine wiles.
Stop this. I can see that you're being nice to somebody. That is essentially you tricking them.
You're being nice to him because you want him to do things for you, not because you care for him.
I also want to say, I don't want to say that, like this part of the game, you're supposed to like asshole Saren. You're specifically, to get the good ending, you're supposed to not give in to what the fuck he's talking about.
You're not supposed to like asshole Saren at all.
You're supposed to be outwardly, like, against what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And this sort of brings us to this big moment. Is this where it is?
Yeah, I believe this is where it is, where he goes into your bedroom and he's like, I'm here to be an asshole.
He has a breakdown before this where you're kind of, like, fucked up. Like, not fucked up. You're, like, not giving in to whatever he wants. And then he kind of says, like, hey, if you leave, what else do I have?
Mm-hmm.
And then he fucking runs away. Because he does a lot of running away in his route.
He does a lot of running away in his route. And he comes back later, and it's the nighttime.
Yeah, and at this point, we're like, maybe we're starting to simp.
Maybe we're starting to simp a little bit. And so this one I remember very well because, okay, so there's a lot that goes into this one. At first he's just being an asshole to you. He also gets really close to you and he's like, hey, do that thing you did in the garden again.
Yeah, we joked about this a lot, about his whole, like, hey, why don't you kiss me like you did that? But he's not saying it. He's trying to be, like, tough about it.
He's trying to pretend to be Ray or whatever, and he's like, give me a little smooch.
Just kiss me like you did in the garden.
And you have to push him away, and when you push him away, he hits his head a little bit, and then Ray comes back.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if it is Ray or just regular Saren.
Yeah, it's complicated, but he sort of, like, seems really shocked, and he's like, why are you so thin? What am I wearing? What's happening? My love brain.
My love brain, and then he kind of realized what he did to you, and he fucking, like, has a breakdown because of what he did to you.
He has a huge breakdown, and he starts crying, and he said, and this is the moment where we officially really liked Saren. In addition to Ray, if you're going to consider them, like, two different counterparts or whatever, is that Ray says, right now, Ray and Saren are scared.
Yeah, and we're like, and for some reason that line just hit. It just hit.
It hit so bad. And it's a very good line. I think about it sometimes. It's just, that's the moment where it all sort of becomes very sympathetic. And then, he leaves. And you're kind of just left with that for a little while.
Yeah, and then he comes back and it's night. And he's like, hey, I'm sorry. Like, I fucked up so bad.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, I'm just fucked up. I fucked up, man. I'm so sorry. I'm like, my life's been rough. I'm sorry I fucked up. And then he kind of leaves, because he sort of talks about how Rika wants God.
Rika wants you McFucking dead.
Rika does not want you here anymore, so she's preparing to have, I don't remember what it was called, but it was called some ominous, ceremony or something.
The cleansing?
The cleansing ceremony, yeah. Which they make it pretty clear you're gonna die.
You're gonna die or you're gonna be horribly traumatized.
Yeah, so this leads into Rika is realizing that Saren is still sympathetic to you even whenever he's, like, acting an asshole. Mm-hmm. So he goes into the thing where she's like, okay, Saren can't see MC. Nobody can see MC. And it's just him standing outside your door, like, yelling to be let in.
Yeah. Let me in! Let me in!
Yeah.
And it's all so very much, but it gets to this point after Saren talks to you and has sort of an honest conversation about, like, yeah, life sucks and I hate it. He does sort of dedicate himself to the fact that he's going to get you out, if anything, right? He's going through some sad times, but he works out a plan to get you out. That plan involves, he does have to consort with RFA members a little bit to figure out what he's going to do.
Oh yeah, this is the whole, he stopped being an asshole, and now he's sort of, kind of coming, like, realizing, hey, I need to heal, and go to therapy.
Yeah. And we're skipping around a little bit, but in the background of all of this going on, there have been a couple of coinciding plots, the most important of which is that Seven has been straight up kidnapped.
Oh my god, I forgot about the plot of where Seven gets kidnapped.
It is so much. Zen has an interview with the cops where they're like, do you know anybody who doesn't pay your taxes? And by the way, Zen, an actor who admits to have been in a motorcycle gang or whatever, is like, yes, but that's only jokes.
But that's only jokes. He is I would not want him to fucking, like, he's immediately like, imagine if when, like, someone said, hey, Milo, do you know anybody, one of your friends that smoke weed? And I went, well, yeah, but it's just a joke, though. Yeah, no, don't fucking say that to the police.
Don't say that to the fucking cops if you were just like, yeah, my game design meeting.
Yeah, I know, it's not good. And then it's just so stupid. That whole scene of him interrogated by the police made me just angry, because he's just so stupid.
Dump ass.
Yeah, but there's no brain in his skull.
Mm-hmm. And it's during this time that Seven goes missing, and your theory is essentially that their dad, who is the Prime Minister of South Korea, which is fucking hilarious, but... Yeah. Their dad, who's the Prime Minister of South Korea, is essentially looking to just fucking murder Seven, because his political career is essentially over if people find out he was being extorted by his affair with his beautiful redheaded boys.
With beautiful redheaded boys. Yeah, so because there's this whole thing of, like, he's been getting weird stuff or something, and then you're sort of, like, confused about what's happening, if it's the agency or not, and then all of a sudden he gets fucking kidnapped, and then you have to essentially tell Saren this, and Saren's like, fuck Colt. We're getting out of here.
We're getting out of here. And as you get out of there, and it is a long and complicated journey from which you get out of there.
Yeah, you end up in this abandoned cabin, which is actually in both of the routes, now that I think about it.
Mm-hmm. The abandoned cabin is in both routes, and you end up there, and it's sort of a nice... kind, domestic moment where you get to be with your boy.
He's having this moment where he's like, how am I gonna reintegrate society again?
Yeah.
And that is kind of what gets me about Saren, is this whole thing of, like, he is very open about the fact of, like, hey, this has been my whole fucking... Well, how am I gonna do this?
His whole life, and it sucks ass.
Yeah, he's like, how am I gonna go on and, like, live after this? And it's sort of this, like, weird bonding experience between MC and Saren of, like, you've both been through this shit. And, like, kind of coming to terms with that, which I really like.
Yeah, it's a huge traumatizing situation that he's got to get past, and I feel like, in terms of the dating sim, and even in terms of general writing, I would say that Mystic Messenger handles this with a lot of maturity and reasonability. It's a fairy tale ending where he ends up happy, but you also understand he's going to need a lot to be able to reintegrate into society and to forgive people who he perceives to have wronged him.
Yeah, and you can see that a lot in the way they talk about Seven, because they're like, do you want to see your brother again? And he's like, I don't think I'm ready for that yet.
Yeah, and it's very complicated because, as is the rule of Mystic Messenger, they're never going to meet.
No, they refused to let these brothers meet. The closest they met was fucking Juman's route, and I was so excited when that happened, and then they didn't do shit with it.
They didn't do shit. They meet in the secret endings that we didn't do, and that's all I know.
I don't know if I like the way that the secret endings seem to take it from the perspective of, like, not the Another Story, because Another Story wasn't released yet, and I don't know, that's not what I want. I want, like, the Another Story Saren getting to meet his brother.
I want Another Story Saren to meet his brother. But Seven has been kidnapped, and they have not found him by the end of the story. You have taken down the Prime Minister, and you have fucked up his career, and now he's not Prime Minister anymore.
Yeah, you let everybody gets a chance to, like, everybody gets to chip in.
Mm-hmm. Everybody gets to chip in, everybody gets to be part of the announcements there. You get to search the house that you believed Seven to be in, but you don't find him. It is a lot. This is also one of the routes, I don't know why I said one of the routes. This is also a route where they don't really learn the truth about Rika. At least Yu-sung doesn't learn the truth about Rika, which is important.
Yes, and we'll get into that a lot more with V's.
Mm-hmm. But things are extremely complicated, and Seven is not back yet, but you are happy with Saren by the end of his route, and I saw that final CG, and I just...
Yeah, it's so... Because that is another reason why I think, like, Saren's route handles his whole thing of reintegrating so well, is that he steps into his old house, his, like, family home, and he had a rough life with his mom, and he has to, like, immediately leave and stand outside. And you're both just sitting there, and he's just, like, talking, and then you guys kiss, and it's, like, it's one of those routes that just, I really like the way that was handled, for Mystic Messenger especially.
It was very good.
Also, can I read you? I have collected here, viewers at home, a variety of screenshots from Another Story, because I took a lot of fucking screenshots in Another Story. I'd like to read you, I don't have many from Saren's route, because a lot of Saren's ones are incredibly sad, and don't illustrate any point beside how sad he is, but I have one sad Saren if you want me to read it.
Please read me the sad Sage
It's, I wish every particle of this hellish fate of mine, so deeply rooted in my bones, would completely leave my entire body.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Right? It's fucked. Sayren's route gets me because I was not going into Sayren's route with any sort of fucking hope.
I was not.
And I left it. And I left his route. Actually, he's probably one of my top favorite routes.
He is. I definitely think Sayren might be my second favorite or my third favorite. It's really between him and Seven. I love him a lot. I came into his route, I will tell you, I was fully expecting, and you know this because I bullied him constantly by calling him Hot Topic Boy. I did not think I was gonna like him at all.
We went into this, and I remember we both explicitly said to each other, we're not gonna simp. We thought it was funny. I thought it was red that was gonna be really funny to make fun of. We used to look through the fan art tag. I think someone... 1 second.
Now we're in the private part of the podcast where Milo is taking a phone call. It's time for me to tell the secrets of the DigiDate podcast. Did you know? I didn't plan this secret part ahead. It's just an Easter egg for Milo and editing. I'm sorry, I lied to you guys. You thought you were gonna get exclusive content, but I've disappointed you. I didn't mean it. It's just that sometimes, the pressure of having a podcast, it becomes too much to bear. And your mind and your heart, they can't take it. And your mom is downstairs, and your brother is playing copyrighted music in the background, and Milo's on the phone. It's up to me to take DigiDate to the end of the Olympic races, like the torch they hold in there. Do you guys know, is there a torch in the Olympics? I don't watch sports.
What were we talking about?
Okay. So we were nearing the end of talking about Sayren's route, I think.
Oh yeah, we're talking about how we felt about his route.
Yeah.
His route is definitely probably tied for Yoosung's as my second favorite.
Yeah.
Because I was not expecting... Yeah, we both would look through fan art, and we would kind of go, why do people like him so much? I don't get it.
I don't understand. And now we look at it and we're like, oh god.
Yeah, it's so funny how we both went, why do people simp? I remember there was specifically we were like, oh, I just don't get it. And then here we are, and we're like, he's my second favorite route in the game.
I love him so much.
I love him so dearly. He is so interesting.
He's so interesting. I want to put him in a little petri dish. I'm looking at him through my tube. So, I guess that concludes our talk about Sayren.
Oh, should we give a rating?
Let's give our rating. Let's give our grade for him.
A+. I really liked his route. Even though there was a lot of weird stuff in it, and I was expecting me to be like, even the weird stuff didn't feel like as much like weird as it did like flavor to the route.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna give him a solid A. I would have liked if there was more definitive and better planned approach to mental illness, but at the same time, it's also it's a dating sim.
Yeah, I also want to mention, before we go on to V, Sayren's voice actor is the best voice actor in the game.
Best voice actor in the game. Hands down, he's so talented.
He's so talented. He sells these emotional scenes, and there's a language barrier between us. But even with that language barrier, you can fucking feel it. You can feel it. I would re-listen to chats of his whenever I was in the route, just to feel the pain. It was just so good. And the way that he switches between these voices, it's really talented.
I think about it constantly. He's such a good voice actor. But, speaking of V's route, you wanted to go through a sort of stage reading before we went into it.
Yes. I do. I want to go to the stage reading of the quote that I quote the most from this route because it drives me buck wild.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I will be playing the role of Rika.
I will be playing the role of V.
Yes.
Fuckhead.
I'm such a horrible person. One day I might blind you for real.
It's alright. Even if my eyes are gone, even if my camera is gone, then I can remember you with your fragrance. I will keep everything about you inside me.
I knew it. You're weird, V. Normally, people would be scared and run away if I told them that they'll be made blind.
I'm not scared of that. There's something scarier than losing a beloved and being alone.
That sounds brave, but can you really promise that? No one knows what their response will be unless they face the situation themselves.
You know, I'm actually curious. What would it feel like to lose sight? I heard the other senses become razor sharp. Is it true?
Don't say such a bizarre thing, V. Why would you want to know that?
I might gain something else by losing something. Maybe I'd feel love even better after losing a part of my senses. If I lose my sight, perhaps I'd understand you better.
I don't know what you're talking about. How could you feel love better by losing sight? Forget it. Enough of this useless idea.
If I do lose my sight, what would you think, Rika? Will you grieve like an angel who's lost her light? Or maybe you'll be glad, as that devil inside you will be waiting for its chance to stab me. Thank you. And scene.
He's so fucking evil.
We are making a visual novel, me and Nellsie, and we have an evil character in it, and I typed that quote out and said she would fucking say this, but V is, again, not a villain.
He is not a villain, or I don't think he's supposed to be, but goddamn.
Is that devil inside you be waiting for its chance to stab me?
Yeah, so while we're
talking,
damn dude, there are some things we have to set down before we talk about V. One, there's inherent bias in us talking about V because we don't like him.
We don't like him. I'm gonna be honest with you. If you are as V simp, you will find no love here.
There will be nothing worth it for you in this. There's nothing for you here, and I deeply apologize.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I don't like V.
There is a lot of talk about V being a male victim of domestic abuse, which I don't want to take away from him, but I do have some doubts over whether or not people who say this really understand the situation isn't that black and white in terms of it. Like, listen, man, this is not the representation you want. I don't think most male victims of domestic abuse become compulsive liars who hide the deaths of people's cousins. They address this in the route, but in a way that I didn't find very satisfactory, and it'll take a little bit of time for me to go through why. But for now, let's begin with, to get V's route, you do essentially just have to suck his dick and balls constantly.
It's insane! Like, to get Saren's route, you have to be, like, kinda nice to him, but that's, like, it. With V, you have to be like, I wonder what V's doing right now.
I wonder what V's doing right now. I bet V's photos are so beautiful. I'm so excited to be gargling V's balls.
I want to gargle his balls so bad. And then people are like, what? Why? Why are you bringing this up?
Why are you talking about this, dude? This is a serious conversation.
But yeah, he's just nothing, man. He's fucking nothing. I wrote out his crimes in a server we're in.
Yeah, his crimes are many and frequented, but you have to get V's route by being very sympathetic towards him, liking him a lot, and trusting him implicitly. This being said, you do just think he's an AI.
Yeah, you do think he's an AI. I guess you're just going for the V route, essentially.
Yeah, and V is dedicating himself to saving you from this funky little cult.
Yes, okay, so there's this whole thing of, like, he goes undercover to go in there and see you, and it's sort of like, I'm trying to well up that kindness I have for him, because this is a very scary thing to do, but at the same time, he's explicitly hindering any sort of progress to save you.
He is because listen, all I'm saying is, and I know this for a fact, in the beginning, if you pick one of the joke responses and call the cops arrest everyone involved and you find out it was a conspiracy related to a cult. All I'm saying is V could call the cops.
V literally could have, but he doesn't, and it's the reasons why get so muddled. And messy.
Listen, V's blind. He has hands. He can type 911. He can do that. I know he can.
Well, I want to say also in this route, he's like partially blind, but he's like just sort of gaining it. Like, he hasn't lost it completely, like he has in the like regular story.
Yeah, in regular story he's blind. I think he's just at his sight's on its last legs, essentially.
Yeah.
But so talking about V, he's just
this route is just sort of going through their relationship, and you're at the center of it.
You're at the center of it. You are just in the middle of these people's relationship drama, and it becomes a very well-established thing that V thinks that the solution to whatever problems you're going through is to sacrifice himself.
Yes, he's got a self-sacrificing complex to an extreme extent to where I can't, sir. I cannot.
I can't do it. Listen, there are a couple of things that I want to talk about in this sense. So, first and foremost, there are times where you can talk to V, and generally, I had to remember to be nice to V, but when you use suspicious options with V, where you're like, I don't know if you're being super trustworthy, he'll go, I understand, and you can hate me after this if you want to.
God, I was looking at our screenshots, and I saw that fucking screenshot, and I felt like my blood boiling. He reacts to any sort of slight suspicion with the most, like, okay, hate me if you want, like, attitude, and it's just, you're not endearing yourself to me at all.
V reminds me of people who cry type on the internet.
Yeah, and it's not like he's, like, trying to be like, oh, yeah, oh no, he plays this sort of act of, like, I'm pity me, but then he also plays this act of, like, don't question my authority, which I don't vibe with.
It's so much, and it's like, I am questioning your authority, man, because you have problems.
Like, if you know you did something wrong, why would you go about, like, here, our friend Percy put it best. He said, actually, I found a bunch of screenshots, if you'd like me to read them.
Read me some screenshots.
So, there's this whole scene where Seven is asking, V is sort of saying, hey, I'm going to go, he doesn't say this to Seven, but he says, I'm gonna go to the cult, I'm gonna try to find MC. So, I'm gonna leave Seven with this weird-ass flash drive, I believe? Oh god, we're skipping way ahead to talk about this. Let me actually skip back a bit. So to skip back a bit, the thing that's going on in this route is that they find out there's the whole splitting moment, which is for Seirin, which is the garden. For this one, Seirin's like, yeah, I'll give you the cult juice. I'll fucking give you the cult juice.
Seems like you're not really, seems like you don't like me very much. The cult juice might be good for you.
Yeah, and V shows up, and then they're like, oh my god, she's stuck in or whatever. And while this is going on, everybody gets sent a photograph. Do you remember this?
Mm-hmm.
And the photographs are, like, pictures of Rika and V together, and it has, like, liar written across it in, like, red.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, there's this whole scene, that's later, but yeah, this is what's happening right now. So then, sort of, like, V is like, oh fuck, I need to go visit. So he tells Seven, here is this flash drive that has the location of, like, MC on it. Don't decrypt it. Wait to decrypt it. Until I am like, you can't get a hold of me anymore. Which is so stupid.
Just dumb motherfucker. I can't stand him. V will go, I don't want you to question anything I do. And then he'll go and do things in the most suspicious way imaginable.
He does! Because that whole thing is like, he's explicitly saying, I know where MC is to them. But saying, don't look for it. I'm going to save them. And it's like, shut up! But I found the screenshots. Oh, you go.
It's just, Bud, listen, V, I want to like you because it seems like a good amount of people like you on the internet, and I don't want to be the one who doesn't. But, what the fuck?
It drives me, yeah, and there's this whole conversation where Seven has been doing everything V says. Because Seven wants to believe V, but now V is being the most fucking suspicious. So there's this conversation between Seven and V. And actually, here, I'll send it over, and then we can read it back and forth again.
Oh boy, a stage play.
Oh boy, a stage play. There's like 3 screenshots, so.
Oh god.
1 second. I'm gonna send them in order. Boop. 1, and then 2. And then 3.
Okay.
Wait, 1 sec,
707.
1 second. I need to get the bottom. Okay, now we're gonna read a little stage play for you all. I'm gonna be V, dickhead, again.
I'm going to be 707, Angel, wonderful little man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm being as patient as I can be right now. I want you to know that catching that hacker could be delayed since you didn't give me all the necessary info.
I'm giving you everything you need, ... You'll see once you decrypt them, ... I'll give you more details when there's a need for them.
When there's a need for them?
Oh, there's MC in here. V, I really want to know what you're thinking. And then I keep repeating myself. If you prefer to hate me, then go ahead. I understand it is difficult to understand what I do. And And scene. He is a dickhead. I'm just gonna say it. This is the most asshole way to respond to someone just saying, hey, you didn't give me the necessary info. And he's like, what's the big problem? I'm giving you everything you need.
Hacker boy?
I'm giving you everything you need. Like, he's mad at Seven for being upset.
It is so very much. And so you get past this where V is constantly blaming himself for whatever, and he will tell you, oh, but if you prefer to hate me, go ahead.
It drives me insane.
It drives me insane, and you get these insights into his relationship with Rika beforehand.
Yeah.
And I will say, and this is going to be a difficult thing to explain, when I look back at the story modes of V and Rika's relationships, they are interesting to me. In just a sense of, like, no children by the mountain goats.
They are no children by the mountain goats. That is what you need to take away from this.
They're going down with each other, hand in unlovable hand.
He talks a lot about the sun. Like, V wants to be, for Rika, a love like the sun.
He wants to be a love like the sun, and what you learn about this is that the reason he believes in this, and it's jumping around a little bit, but it becomes pretty relevant, and is essentially the core of why he is the way he is that he's got grievous and heavy mommy issues.
Yes.
V's mom was a deaf woman who, before she went deaf, worked as a violinist. And once she went deaf, she couldn't do her art anymore. And she had no worth to her husband anymore because her husband sucks. And...
Yeah.
So V's father essentially sort of distanced V from her by principle. And it took Juman's convincing to get V to have any interest in talking to her at all.
Yeah, he does not like his mom for a weird part of this thing.
He doesn't like his mom.
He views art as like a burden or something. It's like a dumb path.
Yeah, he doesn't see art as a useful path for his life, or for anyone's for that matter, and he seems to look down on it, which, you know, it leads to you going, well, he's a photographer now, so what changed? And what changed?
Happened?
And so his mom and him had a fallout, but right after that fallout, and the cause of that fallout was that she put his photos in a gallery for other people to see. And he was like, why did you put my photos in a fucking gallery? My dad's mad at me now.
And he rips it up. And it's like, what the fuck?
What the fuck, dude? Leave your mom alone.
You were dramatic even as a child.
Even as a kid. And so... he rips up the photo in front of her, but later on they have a huge house fire. And his mom fucking dies.
Yeah!
His mom dies saving him.
I'm sorry for laughing. I should be laughing. This is a sad scene.
No, I think you can, because it's a lot. And it's just, listen, this is gonna sound hypocritical, because I'm the Yu-Sung stan in the room, but all I'm saying is it's a little bit weird that his whole motivation for, you know, everything in his life is that his mommy's dead.
Yeah, it's also been a while.
It's been a while, dude. But, so his mom's dead.
Yeah, you learn a lot about his mom, because they have these diary entries from her, and the sad thing is, I left this loving V's mom. I did not work up that energy for V.
I did not work up this energy for V. I remember we used to joke, like, can we fuck V's mom?
Yeah! Because V's mom's story, her whole talk about, like, oh, I lost everything, I can't hear anything anymore, and her, like, dealing with that, and it was so interesting. And then, like, the thing with V is, for me, that relates back kind of to his mom, the reason why his mom's into me is because you kind of see her going through these, like, things that are, like, big changes that she's having to deal with, and her having to sort of come to terms with, like, her life, and that she still wants to live. Mm-hmm. But with V, it should be that, but it's not, because everything that he's doing, he has so many reasons to live, and so many people to depend on.
Yeah.
But he doesn't depend on them ever, and explicitly that is not even, like, thought up in his brain.
Yeah, extremely. And so, it's just quite a lot going on there. But what it establishes is that he's got this sort of motif going on with fire and the sun, and the reason he wants to believe in a love like the sun is because he believes that's the kind of love his mother had for him. The kind of love where you're willing to die for another person or get hurt for them.
I forgot about that, that's why.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot, man.
It's a lot. But okay. So, then we get on to the subject of Rika. Rika is a complicated character in Mystic Messenger, and I want to be clear that if you ever want to be sympathetic towards her or V, you're going to have to pretend that Seiren doesn't exist. And we'll get to Seiren's place in this route in a little bit, because it is a lot.
Whenever we get to Seiren's, it's going to be a lot of us just yelling.
Yeah. But, on the subject of Rika, So V and Rika's relationship is a romantic one, but it's born out of this fact that V sees her as his opportunity to build this love like the sun.
Mm-hmm.
He sees her as his muse, and that's because when he meets her, he sees her as a very kind, personable individual, but learns later when she talks to him one-on-one that she sees herself as a being of darkness. And this is because Rika has the most long and involved backstory ever.
She has an extreme, both V and Rika both have extreme backstories that are complicated and sad, but, Rika's is especially extensive.
Rika has a very extensive backstory, and it is complicated and layered with a lot of stuff that you would need very genuine trigger warnings for, and so much religion.
There's a lot of religion in fucking Rika's backstory.
But we don't have time for that, so what I can say now is that Rika's had a very extensive backstory and a lot of mental health issues. She sees a lot of her drive and intrusive thoughts as a manifestation of a darkness or devil within her.
Yeah, she misunderstands her intrusive thoughts as being that's what she really is.
Yeah, that's a lot of her thing, is that she believes that that her darkness is a part of her, and at first, her darkness is a part of her that she doesn't want anyone to see, but V fully wants to embrace that in her. He sees her darkness as an obstacle towards his love like the sun, and that if he can achieve this love, this sun-like love, then he'll be able to shine on that darkness.
Yeah, he's got this idea that if he can fix her, that somehow he'll be able to achieve that, but it's never gonna work out because that's intrusive thoughts. You can't make those just go away.
Can't make those go away, bud, believe us. But, And so their relationship is very tumultuous because they have moments where they're like a normal couple, and the extent of their relationship that they get to is that there is at one point where they're planning on getting married.
Yeah.
They live together. It's an interesting sort of time for them. But then things get really complicated at the point at which V is enabling a lot of Rika's mental health issues, because Rika is not seeking any psychiatric counsel or anything. And
he tells her not to.
This is a statement I make about fictional characters with mental illness sometimes, because this sort of thing comes up a lot with mentally ill characters. Not everybody needs to take medication, and sometimes medication is not the answer for some people, but it is the answer for you.
Yeah.
And Rika's not being treated in any way, shape, or form, nor is she seeing a therapist. Her therapist is V, who is a horrible, horrible therapist.
Who's a horrible therapist. You get a lot of, hearing him talk about it, and he has a very weird, warped view of her, inner demons.
Mm-hmm.
Of, it's just so... I want to kind of bring up the fact that I was looking at the screenshots for that little bit we read at the beginning, and I feel like V was really focused on her sort of mental illness, because... there were 4 collections that they were doing together. Mm-hmm. And the 4 collections are trauma, obsession, conflict, and reunion.
Yeah.
And there's also this whole bit, which I did put in here, about how V talks about how he saw Rika. And he says, "She was like a white canvas that was waiting for my love. I wanted to paint and color her with my love. I wanted to make her breathtaking and brilliant. I wanted to paint her with my love."
How is this? Does this not sound like a guy in your MFA tweet? It's just...
That's exactly how I kind of viewed Rika, is she was not perfect before, but I will make her perfect.
I will make her perfect. It's so... And you see it as sort of this relationship where they're both perpetuating the worst things in each other.
Oh,
because
yeah.
V wants to be there for Rika through everything, and Rika wants to ruin V, essentially, and that's because he keeps enabling her to do so.
Yeah, it's kind of like Rika doesn't want sort of V to control, to have, all-encompassing. They both want all-encompassing love, but for Rika, that's, she doesn't want to have to, V decides it, almost, essentially.
Yeah.
I do what V, I follow where V goes. V, I am his muse. And for V, it was that I, all-encompass Rika. But neither of them can have that because it's not a good thing to want.
It's not a good thing to want. But, so Rika has her final psychotic break. I think after she blinds V, that becomes sort of the moment where she's like, oh man, I'm evil now.
Oh, I'm evil, and then she runs away.
Yeah, she runs away, she starts her cult. It is also, I'm gonna get at the end, but put a pin in the fact that there are some very definite things that V was an accomplice to, that he knew Rika was capable of very intense things.
Yes,
just chill with it.
That'll be a big Saren point.
Big Saren point. But...
So he sort of sees that she is making this cult, and doesn't want, like, the people in the Rafa to have a bad view of Rika. So he stages her death.
He talks to police interviewers, and this is where, could we have this be my moment for, my boy Yusung?
Yeah, I'm about to say, come on, Yusung simp. This was a moment.
It's time for me to dance, the little jester to dance in front of you all, because fuck this guy so bad. Yusung is Rika's cousin, and I get so horribly sad, because there is a drunk phone call with Yusung where he's crying over the phone with you, and he says, Rika, you didn't come to my graduation.
Yeah, you promised that you promised you'd bring her.
Yeah, V promised he would bring her. Rika has influenced Yusung's life so much. She's a sister to him. There's a point where you call her his sister cousin, because that's the sort of influence she had over his life. And yet, it just feels like this moment where V is lying to the police to say that Rika is dead in front of Yusung. You're supposed to sympathize with V. You're like, everybody grieves in a different way. Everybody grieves in a different way.
Everybody grieves their own way, don't they?
I don't care how evil she is. That's his cousin, and you're depriving him of a chance to grieve. You're depriving him of a chance to feel for somebody important to him. And it stunts Yusung's development so badly. I think that so much of Yusung's problems come from the fact that I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world for Yusung to learn that Rika is evil. I get that it would be a lot for him, and it would hurt him a lot, and it would put him in a vulnerable position. But he has the support of the RFA. If someone were to tell him everything that was going on, then maybe there would be a chance that he could fucking get over it. But he's never gonna get over it because he spent, at this point in another story, he spent 6 months grieving over somebody who isn't dead. In the regular story, he spent a year grieving over someone who isn't dead. So, it's incredibly fucked up. This is a fresh wound that he does not have anything to cover for. And the person he's supposed to trust in, the person who had the closest relationship to Rika beside him, the person who is supposed to love Rika and protect her, who he liked because Rika liked him, doesn't offer him any support at all and doesn't seem to be grieving at all. And that's because V has this insider information that he refuses to offer to Yusung, and it makes me so mad.
He doesn't give it. It's so... Yeah, like, saying that Rika's dead in front of Yusung, and then, like, it fucks Yusung so bad, and also, it is selfishness to keep this information to himself that actively affects so many people. It is completely, like, selfish to just do that shit, because that is a person.
It's horribly selfish. Rika has such a profound effect on everybody's lives. I remember when we played V's route, we had such intense sympathy for Jumin, because V is his only friend who is drifting away from him, in the process of drifting away from him after his second only friend died.
A lot of the interesting parts for me in V's route, in relation to V, was other people dealing with the fact that V lied to them in such a very extreme manner.
In such an extreme manner.
Jumin having to come to terms with... Jumin was one of the ones that is the most, like, V stan, I guess, if you want to use that word for it. But, so having him sort of be like, V might be lying. Like, V lied to all of us is so fucked up. And there's also... I guess this is skipping around a bit, but I have a Yusung quote. Is that, before this, I want to say, they had this bullshit scene where you have to, like... I want to also point out that in Yusung's route, you're supposed to, like, make him apologize to V. Which is so fucked up, because he has no reason to. But also in this route, you have a sort of similar thing, and then once he's sort of gotten over it, they tell him. And then Yusung says, just what have I been doing so far? Just for what? For whom was I grieving? Getting angry and hating, and it's like, V lied, and took that, like, essentially just cut someone out of his life. For what? Like, for what?
For what? It just feels like he's stealing away the grief Yu-sung could have had. Because instead of being able to grieve for his cousin, a really influential figure in his life, that the fact that she's, like, a bad person, or just a troubled person, if you want to put it lightly, he doesn't get that. Instead, he has to grieve for her being dead, and he has no support for that. And he's allowed to be suspicious about this, I feel like, because he's not offered any answers. It's the same for any of the RFA. They don't get any answers. They're all just kept locked in the box of V's head.
It's so... Yeah, and it's like... I was hoping of going into V's route. What it was going to be was him, like, making penance for the lies that he got. But a lot of the time, what it is that other people find out in spite of V. Like, the reason that they find out about the fact that, like, V... Okay, we're jumping around. But there's this whole scene, so, like, in the plot. I guess we should get back to the plot now, but... Mm-hmm. So, MC is, like, doing the app shit, and then Seiren brings you to Rika. That sort of brings us up to the present time, because we were going a bit backpedaling. Seiren brings up to Rika and says, the Savior wants to see you. And this is sort of where you meet Rika face to face. And Rika is probably, like, the secondary character in V's route. Okay. Yeah, like, Rika's a secondary character, so Seiren brings you to the Savior, quote-unquote, Rika. And this also brings us to Rika wants to fuck.
Rika wants to fuck.
Every cult leader voice, I would like to fuck your wife.
It's just, Rika wants to fuck. And I want to put a pin in Rika wants to fuck, because to be honest, when I was playing this route, I liked Rika way more than V.
Yeah, same. It's so much, yeah.
Like, obviously,
she's nice.
She's very romantic, and it's one of those things where, like, for a guy in a dating sim, V has an incredibly unromantic route.
Yeah, he's not romantic, and I mean, it's kind of fair considering that, like, but, like, Rika didn't just die. Mm-hmm. I guess it's fair, but also he's a very unromantic route. Even if he does have romantic moments, it's so far removed. Whereas Rika, it feels like V is using you for a stepping stone for his trauma. Whereas Rika feels like she actively cares about you.
Yeah. Rika sees something in you. She sees a sense of darkness in you. And she wants to push that further. And there is sort of the implication that the reason she's so attracted to you is because V is attracted to you. But I would argue that that's really interesting to me in a way.
Yeah, and also I feel like that's, like, she also asks you, like, about yourself. And is like, I want to learn more about you. And you two sort of, like, she actively tries to get to know you in a way I don't think V ever did.
Yeah, definitely. Rika has such a intensely romantic way of pursuing you, and it's like, it's interesting. But, you know, you're bonding with Rika a little bit, and V's like, hey, stop bonding with Rika.
Yeah, he's like, hey, don't fall for it.
And because you're going for the good ending, you don't.
We did do the bad ending, we should say.
We did do the bad ending with Rika. It's not as satisfactory as I thought it would be, but it was still mad interesting.
It was still, yeah, and then you do get, like, you two apparently just live together.
Y'all live together and you fuck, and she hates you, but she loves you, and I'm like, damn. She hates you,
but she loves you. Yeah, I don't know, that was still kind of sweet to me. In a Rika way.
Yeah. She gets her happy ending in a way.
Yeah, and it's kind of, yeah. It's not that that's a bad ending, but also she is, like, she's done some shit, but we'll talk about that more. Yeah. But yeah, so they're the sort of thing where, like, hey, don't fall for it. And there's this whole scene where she brings you into the garden, and V shows up. She's using you as a lure, putting you out in the garden. Mm-hmm. And then V shows up, and then she's like, fucking get 'em, boys!
Book 'em! And V is like, let her go! You can have me, just let her go! And she's like, I don't want you.
I don't want you, fuck you.
Because, you know, Rika has so many issues and problems. But then we go ahead to V is captured, and he's put in a little jail, and Rika brings you down there, and she's like, look at this little man in his little jail! And you're like, I don't like that little man's in his little jail.
I don't respect this little man in his little jail.
You're like, I don't think that this little man should be in his little jail. And then Rika's like, ah! And then V's drugged out because
because Seiren had a moment.
Seiren had a big moment. and overdrugged V. But while V is drugged out, he's talking to Rika and he's like, I never loved you.
Yeah! He says, I never loved you.
Real appropriate thing to say while we're getting kidnapped, dipshit.
It's so... We lost our minds at this.
Because, okay, if you'll allow me to get into another rant, the insinuation that V doesn't love Rika is fair, but I don't think is necessarily true.
No.
This is to say that V's love for Rika is an obsession, but I think that the way he frames it as pure obsession for which he had no love for her, and in fact it was just his misinterpretation of what love was, is misleading because V did love her, and frankly the idea that he didn't makes him very unlikable.
Yes, it ruins, like, the stuff that I was starting to be like, okay, this is a part of the V's route that I can, like, sort of understand him from, which is that if he's a dude that has this girlfriend who is, like, fucked up and is starting a cult, and him coming to terms with that he can't defend her anymore because he has to get over this love that he had for her, because he, like, it wasn't good, and sort of come to terms with that, but saying that it was never love sort of makes it like it's just, if you knew it was just an obsession, you should have no problem stopping the cult!
You should have no problem stopping the cult. And I guess the idea is that he didn't realize this until now while he's on tons of drugs, but I have a hard time believing that, because here's the thing, is like, the idea that V's love is purely obsession for Rika that he put upon her because she was his blank canvas for which to paint his love upon, this fucked up MFA tweet he said, is valid, but I would say that his obsession for Rika was also tied up in the fact that he did build a genuine relationship with her, and I don't think this nullifies the fact that it was like an abusive and tumultuous relationship. You can love very abusive people. It's just that, you know, him denouncing his love for Rika does send her into a spiraling breakdown for which she starts screaming. By the way, Rika's voice actor is the second best voice actor in the game.
Yes, she's really good. I took a screenshot of that whole part. She starts, like, yelling, and then she says, like, so you mean no one has ever loved me? And it's like, Rika has a lot of killer lines.
Yeah, and she repeats a lot of the time, you said you loved me, you said you loved me, which is really important to her, because if V didn't love her, then nobody ever has.
Yes, which is so fucked up and sad. Like, the whole Rika stuff hits in waves. Like, the fact, him saying he never loved her, to Rika also means that all the time they spent together was fucking wasted. And it's so fucked up to me to say that, even though, like, to just say, like, all the time we spent together was nothing, was, like, it's just, if Rika was, like, if the relationship was more, like, unbalanced in the side of Rika, then, like, V saying this would feel like a, yeah, you know, moment. But it just feels like neither of you are healing by saying this.
Neither of you are healing, and I feel like you're not accepting the fact that... I feel like V's trying to retcon his actions in their relationship by saying that he was obsessed with Rika. He doesn't want to accept the fact that in loving somebody, you can damage them. And so it kind of clouds his interpretation of love for another person, because it feels like he's going, well, when I find a better person who I don't fuck up, then that'll be love. But this wasn't, because you weren't a good person and I did fuck you up.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like he's being like, well, this one wasn't love because it didn't, like, it's just, you're making these weird, you're trying to go back and try to retcon this shit. Instead of looking it in the eyes and accepting and, like, moving on, it just ruins, like, the little bit of pity I was having for him.
It does. It ruins it for me, and it just makes it... It makes it sort of just... Also, I don't like his decision to say this while she's fucking kidnapped us, but okay. So Seven saves us.
He doesn't give a shit about MC. I'm gonna say this. He does not give a shit about MC. Cause he, like, it is 100% his own reputation because we know the secrets that he doesn't want to be spread. And, like, he says this shit, and we'll get into more with actually, no, I'm not gonna get into it, because that'll be more Saber and stuff, but Seven does save you. And this is also, whatever pity I had left in my Seven simp heart went fucking away, because you're in this car, and Seven is asking him, while you're, like, saving him and you're in a chat, Seven asks him, do I know the hacker?
Mm-hmm.
Straight up. And V does not, like, jump. Usually he jumps around it. He'll just leave a chat. This time, he says, and I have the screenshot fucking here because it drove me insane. He says, no, you don't know him. If this route is supposed to be that he learns anything, he never confesses, even once. You find out about Rika, like, that they find out where Rika is, and Seven comes to save you because he decrypts it, and then V goes missing. Like, not V goes missing, V gets kidnapped, you know? They find out that way. Then they see Rika on, like, the screen, like, they're, like, looking at, like, security cameras or whatever. They see Rika, and they go, Rika's alive! V never confesses, even once.
Not once does V confess to any of these lies. But, you know, so you get to this abandoned cabin, and you get to the abandoned cabin, and Seven pulls some strings and gets Vanderwood to help him with this whole thing of getting the hacker to stop packing shit because he's put some security breach in the fucking thing or whatever. Now, this is the point at which, Rika also tells you that she wants you to expose V's secrets to the RFA.
Yeah.
And so the secret that you expose is that Rika is alive.
Yeah, you tell them that.
You tell them that, and they're like, Rika's alive!
Yeah, there's a lot of them, like going, holy shit. Like Juman has this whole thing of just, I feel like I should have known, because they're my best friends. And it's, like, sad that they're all just assuming that it's their fault somehow.
Mm-hmm. And you get a chat. There's a chat for every RFA member where they talk to Rika one-on-one. The Seven chats aren't that extensive because Seven's relationship with Rika was not that close.
No.
The chat with Jae-hee is that she and Rika bonded a little bit over being the only girls in the RFA, and they intended to have a pretty good friendship. And Jae-hee had always had a good feeling about Rika.
Yeah, there's this whole thing of, like, Rika is now sort of ran away and she's, like, in the app, so she's talking to them, and she's sort of almost, like, trying to plead her case to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's her to, like, Jae-hee going, like, trying to pretend like this shit didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so sad because she's just trying to be like, well, remember when we were friends? We could do that again. And then everybody being like, no, we can't. And it's so... This sort of brings us, like, does this bring us into, like, are you trying to talk about the Yoosung thing? Is that what you're going to talk about?
So the chat so Yoosung desperately wants to talk to Rika from the moment that he learns she's alive.
So badly. And no one wants him to, because they all assume he's going to join the cult.
People are like, yeah, we can't let Yoosung talk to Rika. He's going to join that cult.
Yeah, they're like, either he's going to join the cult or, like, you're not ready yet. You're not stable enough yet.
Yeah, and it's so horribly sad. There's a point at which Yoosung stays at Zen's house, and Zen specifically won't let him talk to Rika.
No, yeah, there's a lot of, like, Yoosung and Zen just hanging out.
A lot of them hanging out, and Zen has to be the older brother to Yoosung, but it's also like, Yoosung's grieving, man.
Yeah, I actually have another screenshot here, of Yoosung messaging you, specifically. And it's like, MC is like, please tell me if Rika contacts you. I want to talk to her. I don't care if I get only one chance. I want to know what she meant when she said that before leaving. I don't want to think about anything bad. Please don't tell me you'll leave again.
It's so...
and from Yoosung's perspective, his cousin is back. And he's not allowed to talk to her. And it's kind of fucking him up.
Horribly depressed. I just can't get over it. Like, Yoosung is genuinely he wants to talk to his fucking cousin. And when he does talk to her, it's not a good conversation. It doesn't go well.
No, it goes very bad.
It goes very, very badly. But, you know...
This sort of leads us into the cabin situation, which I think was actually before that, but don't worry, it doesn't matter.
Don't worry, we're jumping around a bit, but it's a game.
So, Rika... Like, V, you have a moment with V. Now, V has not been romantic. You would assume he'd be romantic in this sort of, like, cabin. The most he's done is that he's, like, sitting in the car outside to avoid talking to you.
Yeah. You'd assume this would be the moment where you sort of start building your romance, but no.
Romance. No, he's actively avoiding you.
This is it's very complicated. At one point you're like, I'll hold your hand, and he's like, you'll hold my hand, and that's about how romantic it gets at first. Yeah. And then, you one day, he's like, I'm gonna go hang out in the car. And you're like, maybe you shouldn't do that. And he's like, I'm gonna go hang out in the car.
And avoid you. But yeah, there's the cabin where you guys are standing outside. And this is the one line that I remember you, Nellsie, liked from V. Where you hug him. You guys were talking outside or something. And then you hug him. And he says, like, I've never been embraced before. Rika, I always had to embrace Rika.
Yeah. That's the one V line I like. Because I think it shows such promise in a way. Like, this idea that, like, V hasn't been embraced before because his love was always dedicated to somebody who needed more of it than they could give, right? And it's totally one of those things where I could definitely see the appeal of just, like, if you're like me and you have toxic views. No. But, I could see the appeal of just wanting to be that for somebody, wanting to sort of change this idea that they've had of relationships where they've always had to be the pillar of stability for somebody else. And, you want to show him how to have, like, a relationship on equal terms with another person, For me, that totally makes sense. But there's not enough of that to really justify it for me. I see that line and I see promise.
Promise that is not fulfilled, because right after he says that, I don't like that this was put back to back, because it makes me like V even more less, because it seems like he's putting on an act, because apparently he saw that Rika was there, and once you go inside, he goes like, come out, or whatever.
Yeah. And then Rika's there, and Rika tries to get him to admit that he loved her. Because this has been weighing on her mind, he said he didn't fucking love her.
Yes, do you want to read the screenshots?
I'll read you the screenshots. So, Rika says, no, V, please tell me it was love. Please tell me all the time we spent together was love. If you didn't love me in the past, if that wasn't true, why am I here? I created Mintai and saved people. What is all that over for? What was all that ever for? Then why did you love me? You couldn't even bear being with me. Then why did you tell me you loved me? I'm sure changing is easy for you. I'm sure it was easy, because MC was there to help you. I ended up this way. Now I don't have a clue how I'm supposed to go back.
Oh, it fucks me up.
It fucks me up really bad, because, dude, that's the point where she's at. And I'm not saying V has to feel guilt. I always have to give these corollaries where, like, these are the situations where things are kind of not black and white, because V is absolutely under no obligation to, like, feed into this. But what I am saying is that he did feed into this in their relationship, where he was her only rock, and he actively supported her not having other help.
Yeah, and now she's got nothing, and her sort of being like, I've gone this far, and I can't, like, it's easy for you to fucking wake up one day and decide, I'm not gonna be a liar anymore, I'm gonna be your helpful friend, I'm gonna change. Like, she can't. She's gone so far where, like, none of her family, like, know that she's alive anymore. Like, none of her friends, like, all of her friends think she's dead. She's got nothing. Like, V has left her with nothing. And, like, yeah, she's doing a cult and all, but, like, she can go nowhere. She can't just fix shit.
She can't just fix shit. And that's one of the things that gets me, is, like, Rika just wants so badly for things to go back to normal, but she's forced to sort of lean into this darkness of hers because she's gone too far. She's gone too far, and there's no turning back, and it makes her a fascinating character to me.
Yeah, like, I should say, it's not just V who does, obviously she did this to herself. She made the cult herself. But it's sort of the combination of that, and also, like, she's been cut off, so, like, but the cult stuff, she's gone too far to where she is realizing all of a sudden, if V doesn't love her, then, like, she's got nothing.
Nothing at all.
She did all of this, and she's so far gone that, like, she can never go back to that life that she misses so bad.
Mm-hmm.
She's not a Rika who is the, like, party runner of the RFA anymore. And there's, like, something so tragic in it, and then she stabs V.
And then she stabs V. Oh boy.
V is, like, out for most of his route, I should say.
V is fucking injured a lot. So V gets stabbed, fun times. Fun times all around. And it's so very much. And V gets stabbed. There's a little bit in terms of, like, he does not want to go to a hospital immediately, which is ridiculous because he has to.
Yeah, it's stupid. I don't know why he doesn't want to go to a hospital. I guess because, like, they'll ask who stabbed you, and then, like, they'll find Rika, but his protectiveness of Rika...
Oh, like, he's so protective of her, but he doesn't love her.
He doesn't love her. Like, it made it with the stabbing stuff, I kind of get, because there's, like, this, she's, like, telling him, like, hey, I have fucking nothing. So I would get that he'd be a little bit more, like, thing, but, again, I want to mention, there is a cult. There's a very bad cult.
There's a big bad cult, V, and you really gotta be fucking thinking about other people here, but whatever.
He only thinks about himself or Rika. And when he thinks about Rika, he thinks about, like, Rika in terms of this wounded angel that is falling, and he needs to sort of, like, self-sacrifice.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
But yeah, he's in the hospital.
Now you're in the hospital, and you go to the hospital. Juman has to pay the medical bills, by the way, and while Juman's there, he's like, actually, fix this motherfucker's eyes while you're at it.
Yeah.
Juman is so... I think Juman's really tired of this shit.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, like, there's this whole conversation, like, right after this, I think, actually, with Juman and Rika. Because this is also sort of whenever you have those whole conversations of them, like, of Rika getting into the app and talking with them. Is her way of sort of, like, apologizing, but also trying to live out this fantasy that she still is there. But she has this whole conversation with Juman, and Juman's like, you fucking stabbed V.
You fucking stabbed V, and you weren't dead, and fuck off.
Just please leave. Can you please just give me a minute? Like, I just need some time. Give me a minute?
I'm a horribly lonely man, and everything is falling apart for me.
I just need a little bit of time.
I gotta go hang out with my cat. I hate women.
Yeah, I will say, even though we are sympathetic to Rika, that whole conversation with Juman did feel like, yeah. She can't just waltz back in here and try to get back into those good graces. I didn't include a lot of these screenshots, but there's a lot of screenshots where she talks to MC. There's actually one where she sends you, like, 5 hearts.
Yeah. She wants to fuck.
She wants to fuck. She tells you a lot, and she's like, I'm sorry for what I did. Like, I hope he's okay. And also, like, I miss you. And I love you. And I have dreams about it's just you, me, and V. We have an orchard. V,
and we go to the apple orchard and we pick the apples together. And you're part of our mixed orientation throuple.
And it's like kind of tragic in a way.
It's just, that phone call got me really emotional, and this is also just the point where Rika kind of just accepts, yeah, shit sucks, I'm just gonna lean back into my darkness, I'm actually the moon to V's sun, that's what I am, and it has this dope CG.
Yeah, dope CG of her silhouetted by, like, the moon, it's beautiful, but she goes back to the apartment, she goes back to the old apartment when this is happening, and I think that actually brings us into Seiren.
So imagine you are a Mystic Messenger player when they first release another story, and the only route you have is V. And this is why they added a Seiren route, is because throughout the V route, Seiren fucking loves you. And he calls you and he begs you to stay. He begs you not to leave him and not to abandon him, and you straight up have to, because that's the name of the game.
Yeah.
And he does these desperate calls where he calls and he's like, hey, I love you so much, please don't go. Hey, I love you so much, please don't go. Hey, I love you so much, please don't go.
Yeah, and it's like, he genuinely doesn't, you are what? There's this, like, I didn't put it in here, but there's this thing where he says, like, if you leave, I'll be like the sunflower. I will lean in the direction that you've gone.
It's so goddamn sad. And it's one of those things where your relationship is supposed to mirror the relationship that V and Rika had in a way, where he's so overly dependent on you for the symbol of something he could aspire to or somebody who cares about him. You're the only love he has.
Yeah, he put all his eggs into this brainwashed girlfriend basket in V's route.
He put all his eggs in this basket, and you are you're snatching the basket up, and you're, like, throwing the eggs at him.
Yeah! And he's mention, so to bring up why whenever we think about Seiren, we fucking hate V and Rika, is that whenever Seiren was a child, he was put under the care of Rika, and also V. And V, and like, Rika brainwashed him, like, cut him off from, like, anything, cut him off from his family, made him think that Seven was, like, evil. She just destroys this boy, and then V watches.
V just watched this happen. He knew this shit was going on. He knew that shit.
He knew it, and then he has the audacity to say lines like, "Oh, please let me be the only one who's harmed."
Seiren's already been harmed.
I know, and it makes me so mad because they don't address it. Like, V never wants to save Seiren. He doesn't Seiren's route, but it's only like, it's like a vague thing, and it's more so him saving MC. Like, V's just not, like, the fact that V doesn't get rid of the cult is already bad enough, but the fact that he doesn't help, like, Seiren?
It's really fucked up, man, and it makes me so mad. But, so Seiren is sort of desperately calling you the whole time, and there's a lot of intricate details we can get into, but the base being that the desperation he had in the Ray route for somebody to care about him, mixed with the desperation and trauma he has, just like once he's opened up to you emotionally, is sort of all wrapped up in this because he is in it bad, and this cult stuff is going really bad for him, and it leads to Rika going to the apartment, and Seiren has to evacuate everybody from the Mintai building and set it on fire. And you have one last phone call with Seiren where he calls you and he tells you that he truly really liked you.
Mm-hmm. I have the text messages. He says, "I remember when you came to Magenta for the first time," which is Mintai, and when you were so engrossed in testing, when you listened so closely to me, the garden we took walks in together. Actually, I've been carrying around that flower you liked. I wanted to dry it and give it to you. But now I can't give it to you. I can't see you again either. MC, I really truly liked you. And it's like,
Seiren!
Imagine that you can't date this man.
And the last thing you see is a story mode where Seven is looking at the CCTV of the Mintai building and sees that it's on fire, which means that Seven is watching his brother fucking die, by the way.
And he doesn't know! He doesn't know!
And I get so angry thinking about this because I'm supposed to be having my hospital love story with this motherfucker V while Seiren's dying?
Well, Seiren is dying in an explosion!
By the way, V has no reaction to this when it happens, doesn't have any reaction to it at all. Even Rika has a reaction to it where she goes, "Oh my god."
Yeah, she, like, gets a little sad.
She gets a little sad. It's not close to enough, but she's at least sad about it, you know?
Something.
You don't get fucking anything from V.
And it just destroys me because Seven never finds out. In the whole of V's route, Seven never finds out that was his brother. As far as he knows, his brother is, like, just fine, somewhere out in the world. And he doesn't know that he watched his brother die.
His brother fucking died. But whatever, we're just gonna move past that. The party's canceled, and Rika comes to the party venue, and everybody's like, "Hey, the party's canceled, fuck off." And, I can't believe the party was canceled. I'm never coming to another RFA party. And then she's like, "Well, we've got these complimentary bottles of wine."
Second when that fucking happened, I didn't piece together that it was cult juice. I was like, oh, she's just handing out bottles of wine? That's nice of her.
Yeah, she's like, "We've got these complimentary bottles of wine." And Yusung has to stop her, and he's like, "Hey, that's cult juice. Everybody hand the wine back, please." And she's like, "Yusung."
Yeah, just this whole moment where he's like, "You need help."
You need help, Rika, and I'm so sorry. And also my life sucks so bad, but come on, we gotta go. And he's called the cops.
Yes, and I also want to mention, they
finally someone's called the cops.
Finally someone called the cops, but yeah, they canceled the party, but like, they fucking had this whole thing of like, are we really gonna cancel the party?
Yeah, we gotta cancel the fucking party. I've been with the cult the whole time.
V got stabbed. You guys are gonna continue the party? V got stabbed, and they're like debating it. What are you talking about?
V got stabbed, you idiots.
That's if you can cancel a party because someone is in the hospital.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's the whole Rika thing, and it was a good scene of Yusung standing up, and sort of doing it. I know we're running a bit long, but that's because we have a lot of thoughts.
We have a lot of thoughts. But then you get to the conclusion of the route where you have a conversation with V where he's got his fucking eye surgery and everything. He's out of the hospital. And he's like, I think I could really grow to love you, but I need some time for myself. And it's like, alright, bud. And then he fucks off to Antarctica for 2 years.
Oh my god, this part drove me insane. Because I was hoping the end of his route would be, oh, the RFA, I need to be clean with the RFA. There are people here who care about me. We need to build this relationship. No, he fucks off for like 2 years.
And you know he's not keeping up consistent communication because everybody else in the RFA is like, have you heard from V in a while? And they're like, no, not for 2 fucking years.
Yes, and you're like hosting parties now.
You're hosting parties again, and you host this next party, and, you know, everybody's heading over to the party, and everybody's got so many issues, by the way. Juman's an alcoholic now, which is just sort of glossed over.
Yeah. Seven still doesn't know.
Seven still doesn't know, and it makes me so angry, but then V shows up in his puka shell necklace.
His frat boy puka shell necklace.
He got a horrible haircut. Listen, I'll say one thing for V, alright? I think V, at best, even if you take away all the stuff I don't like about him, has a nice character design. It's a little boring, but it's a nice character design. I think his haircut looks really bad.
The final CG looks fucking not good, in my opinion.
It does not look very good.
I mean, it's not the worst final CG, but it's just seeing
It's no Jae-hee's final CG.
Yes, also, like, it kind of bring up Jae-hee's. A lot of the final CGs with dudes, like, they will have MC in it. The reason Jae-hee's doesn't is because they can't have a romantic moment. Because they're not allowed. But the fact that the V's is just a shot of V boils me for some reason.
It's so insane to me. It's just him, and he's just like, I'm ready to love you now, and it's this close-up of his big-ass face, and I'm like, what the fuck?
And he's like, I've been painting white, like, puzzle pieces.
Yeah, he tells you about his hobby of putting puzzles together, and it's like, I've been putting together completely blank puzzles, which, you boring motherfucker.
Yes,
but...
if we're wondering why we don't, like, talk about V outside of, like, his relationship with Rika and stuff, it's because he's boring.
He's very boring. It's just so stupid. But whatever.
He fucks off for 2 years, comes back from Antarctica and goes, hey, Big Daddy Long Dick's back. You wanna, like, are you the same person you were 2 years ago? I bet you are. You wanna get back together?
Big Daddy Long Dick's back. It's just... Why are you so fucking funny? But, yeah, and I just, this fucker, I get so angry about this because there's so many, like, literally nothing was resolved except he's back and he's like, I didn't get any therapy. I traveled for 2 years.
I sat around with some fucking penguins and now I'm good. Like, I'm fine. He drives me insane. He learned nothing.
But... Also, what needs to be established here, V is the only character, aside from Jae-hee, who has no kiss CG.
Yeah, you cannot kiss this man.
You can't kiss him. His most romantic CG, the one you see in all the photo posts where they got all the kiss CGs together, is the embracing one. And in that one, he looks like he's a cardboard cutout.
It looks like, yeah, you have a fucking cardboard stand-up of V that you're hugging. It is the most impassive, like, passive way to hug somebody. His arms aren't even up. He's just standing there while you hug him. It is so not romantic. I used to send Nellsie, like, pictures or screenshots of, like, these photo sets that were, like, every kiss CG, be like, Happy Valentine's Day! And then there would be V's, and it's just him fucking standing there while you, like, joylessly getting hugged.
And the moral of the story is that Seiren and V at first did not have after stories, but V's after story came out, and it cost 25 hourglasses to do each one, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
so
and we're not.
We're not gonna do it, but from what I understand, it's about Rika for the most part. Also, you apparently have a kid with him in some epilogue that exists.
You cannot kiss him, but you can have kids.
You can't kiss him, but you can bear his weird-ass child. I don't want V to have children. He's a horrible dad, by the way. Horrible father to Seven and Saren. Think of me as a father. Well, you're a very bad dad.
You're an incredibly bad dad if you fucked off for 2 years, and you come back and you haven't told your kid shit, and you just...
Seven every day for the last 10 years. Papa, can you tell me what's going on with Saren? No, boy.
Not yet. You must wait for the perfect time. The perfect time being whenever I fuck off to Antarctica.
Fuck, we forgot about the most important thing. Rika's canonically committed murder.
What?
Remember?
God, that's at the end of this. Yeah, I forgot. That's the end of Saren's.
Rika fucking killed Saren's mom.
Rika killed Okay, this is jumping way back. But this is at the end of Saren's route, once the credits, or not really the credits roll, but before that. And, so V comes back to Rika and Saren's route, which feels like No Children by the Mountain Goats kind of poetic. And so you get this flashback scene where apparently Rika wanted to just take in the kids, trying to take Saren out of that home because Seven left, but Saren didn't get to leave. And the mom gets mad, and Rika just kills. It's like implied.
Rika just commits murder, and V was an accomplice. And
V was an accomplice! V covered it up!
I want that to be imprinted in the history of this podcast, that Rika committed murder.
And even back then, V's like, yeah, I'll cover for you. It made more sense back then. Now, motherfucker, is he covering, okay, conspiracy theory. Is he covering for her because he doesn't want the police to know that he covered up a murder?
That would actually make a lot of sense.
That would be the only option I would believe.
That would make a lot of sense. But that concludes the crimes of V.
Yeah, actually, this will be a good ending if I just read off my list of crimes, V crimes. Would you like to double work it?
Yes, I would like to double work it. Send me the screenshot and I will.
Hear ye, hear ye. Everybody all rise.
The town crier is here to tell us of the crimes of Mr. V, otherwise known as Ji-Hyun.
Otherwise known as Dipshit.
Otherwise known as Fuckhead. In the casual story, V attempts to reconcile with Yusung after 2 years of avoiding him entirely, continues to lie to Yusung that his cousin is dead.
He does not mention that he knows there is a bomb in the apartment, and that the hacker is with a malicious organization, Mintai, until he cannot lie about it anymore.
In Jae-hee's route, he lies to Jumin, with whom V is his only friend, that he's going to die soon from a terminal illness.
Deep story! He promises Seven that he'll protect his brother. He does not.
V has Seven fix this bomb to protect the information in the apartment. The important information that V is the most concerned about is that about Rika being in Mintai. So V is having him hide evidence about Rika, by extension his own damn brother who's being abused, and not telling him about it.
Another story! V knows that Rika is running a cult that he openly says is abusing people. He does nothing to stop it.
He knows that Saren is being abused by Rika and is in Mintai, does nothing to get in contact with him since he was a child.
Lies that Rika is dead to the police, making all of her friends mourn instead of telling them about the cult.
Even though he knows that MC is in Mintai, he refuses to tell anyone about it. He lies to you that he's doing all he can. He is not.
He mansplains to you what sunspots are. Also, whenever someone asks V for more details, he acts like you're an asshole for asking.
And those are the crimes of V.
Yes, those are the crimes of V. Court adjourned.
Court
Gavel
adjourned?
noise.
What grade would you give this boy?
The route in general or the boy?
See, that's the complicated thing. For the boy, it's a very bad grade.
For the boy, it's gonna be a strong, like, D-.
It's gonna be a strong D-. For the route itself, though, it was pretty fun and interesting. I had the time of my life.
Yeah, I will say it dragged a bit, like, to a point of, like, it drags a bit where there's, like, you're kind of just waiting for the next wild shit to happen. I don't know. I feel like for the route itself, I would say it was a roller coaster, and I'm glad we played it, but I don't know if I would have been able to get through it if I wasn't playing it with you.
Yeah, definitely. I want to give the route, because the route was really interesting to me, and I had a lot of fun talking about it with you, and I was frustrated with V, but in a way that, like, it gave me a lot to talk about and a lot to think about. So I would say that I would give the route a C+, and the plus is because I had so much fun with it.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it... I'm trying to remember what I gave Juman, so I don't give it a lower rating than Juman's, because I like this route more than Juman's route. But if I did, Milo editing this, fix that. But if I didn't, then I'm gonna also say it like a C+, because it is interesting. It is incredibly interesting, but there is like a lot of shit that is just... It drags, and... It
drags, and it makes you buy max speed.
But maybe also at the same time, it was incredibly interesting. I'm gonna give it a B-. I'm gonna give it a B-. I think it is worth the money, but I enjoyed Seirin's route more.
I enjoyed Seirin's route a lot more. And I guess that concludes the Mystic Messenger arc of DigiDate. How did you feel about that?
Well...
Can you feel any more?
No.
Well, you're gonna have to work up the need to feel again, because we're going to be playing Obey Me next. Which, to be honest, I'm not looking forward to it.
I'm not even a little bit looking forward to it, but at the same time, it'll be a something.
It'll certainly be something, you know? I'm excited for the recording of new episodes, and we won't have to sit down and be angry about V.
Yes, I'm excited to have a fresh thing where it's something that we both don't already have deeply entrenched feelings about.
Yeah, it'll be a new experience, and hopefully it'll be a nice experience for our DigiDate listeners. It won't feel like we took all your furniture and moved it 2 inches to the left. But,
I can't promise we won't talk about Animal Crossing next time in the intro.
Can't promise we won't talk about it again. I recently had to restart my game, and now it's all I think about.
But hopefully you'll be with us next time. We will be playing, I just forgot the name. We'll be playing, I hope you'll come back for us for next time. We'll be playing Obey Me for a week, and then telling you guys all about our opinions on this game, and probably giving it a rating. Best case, it'll hit that sweet spot for me of bad dating sims where it makes me laugh. Or maybe it'll be good. You have to find out.
Well, you have to find out. I'll see you on our next episode of DigiDate.